warms my heart to see people come out for this topic. My name is Becky Kinnear, and I was part of the group back in September. We started getting together, just noticing that there was not a lot of local news reporting. So we said, let's get together and talk about it. So we were called The Conversation to begin with. We did that for a while, and then started noticing gaps in news, so began working on some of that. We made a list of the local news sources, and there's a sheet in the back if you'd like to grab one of those. What we have come up with as the local news sources, so you can grab one of those and just explore the whole idea of news deserts. I had never heard it before. So if people say, well, I don't know anything about journalism or whatever, well, I'm a nurse by background, so I certainly don't. But I've learned a lot about it, and I think by being here, it's really about not knowing where we're going, but just that you're interested in being here and that you have a love for this community and want to see us thrive. I know Bruce is going to talk about it, but I just wanted to mention the objective. We met in February, and this is our second meeting called Where's the Local News Part 2. After that first meeting, kind of came up with an objective for the group to explore opportunities for the citizens of Denton County to receive up-to-date, trustworthy, accurate local news. And I think the emphasis here is on explore. If you think about the early explorers, they didn't really know where they were going, right? They didn't know what was over the next hill, around the next bend, and I think that's exactly where we are. We don't really know. We don't have a set agenda where we're going to go. We're going to hear today from some different folks who are sharing news right now, but there's room at the table for everyone. So I think that's the message we want to set. We don't have a set agenda. I mean, we have an agenda, but not for where we're all going to go together. So hopefully we can do that together. I would just like to thank Steve Hansen for doing the live stream today, because we have folks on live stream, so hello. I think we have about 13 or so on live stream. And so we're glad to have them. And then I would just, without further ado, I would like to introduce Bruce Siebold. And Bruce is the owner of Rust Prairie Consulting Group, longtime resident of Menominee. So we're very, very happy to have him. He is volunteering his time, as all of us are. But we're here because we want to be here. And I'd like you to join me in thanking him and welcoming Bruce.
Well, at the last meeting, someone asked when I was getting paid. And I said, my hope is that someone could give me a dozen eggs. That'd be mighty good to get a dozen eggs. Anyway, at the last meeting on February 9th, great turnout, just wonderful turnout. We had some wonderful discussion, but I came away uneasy because I'm always trying to drive things to a conclusion, trying to organize chaos. And when I came away from that meeting, I was more confused than when we started, because it was just ideas just popping all over, and we tried to capture them. But this is going to be a long journey in terms of trying to move us into a direction that can take us to meet our objective of providing news to the local community. So we had, the core group met after that big meeting in February, and that same confusion was there at the core group. It was, we didn't know where to go. And we finally just wrestled with it again and again. We finally came up. There was a lot of good speakers. A lot of people talked about what they were doing, but I think the group needs more depth on what those people are doing or trying to do in this local community. So we put the agenda together with that as our idea, and so we picked up six different people that are going to spend a few minutes talking to us more about what they envision their world could be in terms of meeting our objectives. So we got not much time to do this, but we're gonna try to get some framework out here. At that end of that, Then I'm going to ask you to say, which group are you interested in talking more about? So these people will be in groups. And then we've got maybe half hour, 20 minutes or so to start talking more in depth about each one of these items. I've got a matrix for you to work out and start to fill in. And at that point, we'll come back together and see where we want to go next. Hopefully, we're not as confused as we were as last time. We're bringing a little bit more structure to this very, very nebulous idea of news for the area. So, okay with agenda? Like, hang loose. This is chaos. Chaos is hard to organize. So let's go then. Okay, so the first speaker would be okay, Becky, on this?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, if you see a little white card coming from Stephanie, that just means wind down. You have 1 minute left.
You have a minute left.
You have 1 minute left.
This is like those political debates. where
Yeah.
they say, but no one listens to them, they just keep talking. So Steph's the one that's going to try to bring a conclusion to this meeting.
Elbow card.
Okay, so Kathy, where's Kathy? Come on in, Kathy. We heard a little bit from Kathy last time, and she is in charge of Menominee Minute. And we're going to give some chance to put some more meat on what you talked about, and maybe some questions when you're done speaking. Okay, it's all yours.
Okay, so my name is Kathy Weber, and I started the website, the Menominee Minute. And so if anybody was at the meeting last time, I did kind of give some background there, so I'll keep that part really brief. So I was just frustrated with the lack of news and information available in Menominee, and it was kind of frustrating that really everything that was out there was on Facebook, and I'm not a big Facebook fan. So I wanted to have an option where it was an actual website. So I just kind of started it as a hobby, played around with it a little bit. I, right now, am kind of at the point of, you know, I put a lot of time into it, and I would like to get a little bit of compensation for my time. So I'm at the point now where I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I took things really slowly. I'm not a writer. I'm not a computer person. But I just went slow, built it slowly. I wanted to make sure that when I was ready to go out to, you know, businesses and say, you know, can you maybe sponsor me, advertise, or to people that are reading it, you know, a contribution. I wanted to make sure that I had a pretty good product. So, you know, I've really taken my time with it. I don't want to put something out there asking for any money until I feel like it's pretty good. So I'm thinking about probably setting it up as a nonprofit. At some point, you know, if I do evolve this into something more, I will probably go to a different website. Right now it's just set up as a simple blog. And I don't know if probably some people here have looked at it, but I keep things, I have different categories. I try to cover a lot of events that happen. You know, I've started coming to the city council meetings, and I've done a few little posts on that. I do repost a lot of what I do see on Facebook, again, to kind of put that out there for people that aren't on Facebook, kind of give a little bit of organization to it. And I try to focus on like stuff at the schools. One really big post I did recently was I did the honor roll from the first semester of high school, and I think a lot of people really appreciated that. Last year I covered the valedictorians. I do sports as best I can. That's kind of hard to do for some sports. I science Olympiad, you know, music, anything that I can get them to share with me. And that's a bit of a problem too. You know, a lot of coaches and advisors don't really have a lot of time to put stuff together. But I do want to cover that. So, you know, I do have a lot of room to expand. Right now it's just me. I just do it myself. You know, until I get a little income coming in, I really don't have a way to expand on that. I don't, you know, I anticipate at some point I'll be able to increase, you know, my time on it. Especially if I do start getting some income, I'll probably feel like I, you know, can do that a little bit more. A couple other things I guess I'd like to say. I mean, I do appreciate that people are here. They're concerned that there's, you know, no news out there and that they want that to change. You know, I'm a little hesitant to see a third website go up. I mean, I have mine, Steve has his. You know, I have a hard time picturing a third website. Plus you got Facebook, plus you have, you know, everybody else's website. So I did make this offer before to this group that gathers, that if they want to put the, whatever products they come up with as far as stories or whatever, they can put them on my website. I'm not sure if that's a possibility or not, or if that's something that they're open to. So that's really kind of it. You know, Kate, that you'll be hearing from later, has a really great idea about trying to get some people involved in writing. You know, I did have somebody come up to me and say, you know, I'd love to write, but I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't either. But, you know, I figured it out, and everybody else can too. So that's kind of it. And I do have to leave. If anybody does have any questions or, you know, want to contact me, my website's easy to find, menomonyminute.com. My email is just menomonyminute@gmail.com. So.
Could you ask the group how many have actually seen your?
Sure. Who's seen it?
Oh, excellent. Good. Do you have a number of followers? Or
Yep.
Could you share that? Or?
How many?
Yeah.
Well, I have a newsletter that people can sign up for that goes out on Thursdays, and I have about 400 people signed up for that. Not all of those get opened. You know, probably about a fourth of them don't. I can see, you know, how many posts or, you know, hits I get. And that kind of varies on the story, because I do put a lot of stuff out there on Facebook, even though I don't really like Facebook. I know that's the way to draw people in. So, you know, some of my bigger posts will be like 3,000 people or 3,000 hits. Some of those can be, you know, duplicates. But yeah, you know, the newsletter is a great thing. I do post some stuff kind of real quickly. Like, sometimes events don't come up until like the day before. So I usually suggest you don't check every day. I put stuff out there pretty much every day. And things are getting busier. You know, I think I started this during COVID, and, you know, there wasn't a lot going on, and now I'm finding, you know, there's definitely more stuff going on, so more stuff to cover. So.
Questions?
So if you want to post something on your site, you just go to menominee.com, I mean,
Yep, so if you go to my website, menomonyminute.com, I do have at the top, contact me, and you can submit things through that. Otherwise, you can email me too at the menomonyminute@gmail.com. So.
So you mentioned twice now in your presentation, you'd like to make money. How do you envision making money on something like this?
So I would probably do sponsorship, you know, like sponsor a page, because I have different sections like sports, or, you know, the events, entertainment, school section, the homepage, you know, do a sponsorship through businesses.
Okay.
You know, I could do advertising, and then like donations, you know, if people feel like this is something that's worthwhile, you know, they can donate $5-10, you know, whatever.
Other questions? Yes.
Kathy, would you be able to quantify how much time you think you spend on this a week?
Kind of varies depending on, you know, what I have going on. But I would say right now it's only about probably 15 hours. That's a lot.
15 hours a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I do a lot of reading too. Like, I think last time I mentioned, I get the Colfax paper. Awesome. I get the Eau Claire paper. I'm online, like Twitter, other social media, you know, everything that I can find. So I spend a lot of time reading Volume 1. You know, spend a lot of time reading. I don't count back in there.
Do you get the sheriff's news and the police news? I notice you do.
I do get press releases. I signed up for a bunch of press releases from different places. So.
Okay, Kathy, you have children to run, I understand.
Well, I have stuff to do.
And that takes priority, so thank you for
Yeah,
being here.
Sure.
There'll be follow-ups, so I'm sure the Menominee Minute's going to get some more attention. So
Okay.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Bruce, I'll be her rep if people want. I'll be a conduit to get things
Excellent.
to Kathy.
And I'll leave some cards, some business cards on the table.
Okay. Okay, the second presenter is Becca. and you're going to talk about Menominee podcasts.
My podcast,
Your
yeah.
podcast. Okay, here's Becca. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi, everyone. You likely know me from the co-op. If you recognize me, that's where probably. I'm not here to talk about co-op business today, though. So myself and my co-host, Dustin Dubuque, who you probably know, also started a podcast called the Menom Podcast about 2 years ago. I'll give you a little background of it. I'm going to preface this by saying this is not a news podcast. We do not report the news. We interview local people, and what they choose to share is kind of up in the air every episode. We don't script it, so it's not anything that is planned based around specific topics or anything like that. So we originally started this podcast two springs ago. Dustin was the executive director of Downtown Menominee for many years, and I am on the board of directors for Downtown Menominee. So him and I have been friends for a while, and always joked about how people tell us everything, and we wish that there was a place to share the funny stories people tell us all the time, because between the two of us, we know most of the people in this community. So we started a podcast originally called Downtown Menom within the Downtown Menominee organization. When Dustin left to get a new job this past fall, we made the decision to keep doing the podcast with us two as hosts and take it out independently. So now we're not associated with any organizations. It is just us on our own doing it. Similar story to the Menominee Minute. The trickiest thing is that it does cost money to produce a podcast. We could technically do it for free on our own, but we both have full-time jobs. Dustin is a parent of 2 kids, and I have volunteered for too many things. So we pay a company called Eau Claire Hometown Radio to produce the podcast for us, that we're now paying for out of pocket. So, which we knew going into this change that that's what we would be doing, but similar to the Menominee Minute, eventually we'd like to break even on it. That'd be pretty cool. So we were just working on launching sponsorships for that in the next couple of months, because we've been asked by a lot of our friends in business worlds if they can sponsor it in different ways. So, but now we're independent. We have changed the name to the Menom Podcast, and every month we put out 2 episodes. So roughly every other week we have an episode that comes out, and each one is about 30 to 40 minutes. We sit down with a local person and just kind of chit chat for the whole time. Sometimes we talk a lot about what they do for work. Other times we go on tangents about who knows what. The funny thing about podcasting is sometimes I listen to the episodes and I'm like, I don't remember saying any of that. This is news to me too. So yeah, we are just kind of letting it flourish a little bit more now that we've taken it independently. We launched a website, themenompod.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and otherwise we just record once a month, and every episode is very different depending on who our guest is and what they feel like talking to us about. So I wouldn't say that it is a news podcast by any means. It is mostly a space for people to share their story, kind of get to know people in a different way. And we have a lot of fun connecting with people and learning more about what they do and how they ended up in this town. The common theme is how people ended up in Menominee, whether they're locals or if they are transplants like myself. It's a pretty split mix. 50-50, and a lot of people came here for college and didn't leave, like me. So that I've learned is a very common thing to happen to people in this town. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions about how we
Questions, Rebecca?
operated. I'm happy to tell you more.
Okay, I'm going to show my age and my ignorance. How do we access your podcast?
Great question. It is on any streaming platform that you can access for the most part. So the majority of our listeners are listening on Spotify. It's also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. There's a app called Pocket Casts, all sorts of different places. So you can listen to it in a lot of different places. Each of our episodes gets
anywhere from 100 to 700 listens, so it really depends on who the guest is and how much they will share it on their platforms too, but
How long is each segment?
30 to 35 minutes.
Okay.
Our producer wants it to be 30 minutes, and we ignore it every time. He gives us a 5-minute warning many times throughout it. We're like, okay, this is the real 5-minute warning.
So 2 questions I have. Are you interested in news, sharing news within the community?
We do share like upcoming events here and there on it, because we record a month in advance, so that's what makes it tricky, is
Yeah.
when we're recording, by the time it comes out, anything that is current events is gonna be old news by then, so we do promote upcoming events that, you know, Downtown Menominee doing, the co-op, other happenings that we know about. Dustin's involved in the music scene, so, and the museum and stuff, so we do promote events on there,
Okay.
and are willing to continue to do so.
And the last question I have is, you said you pay money for someone to,
Yeah.
is that a lot of money? I don't want to know specifics, but is it?
So I'll tell you the specific, I don't care. It is not, it evens out to be about $100 a month.
Okay.
So they bring all the recording equipment to us, and they take care of uploading it, and then we also upload it in a secondary stream of our own, which is kind of confusing to explain, but the producer has his own very long feed of all of the podcasts that he produces that will show up in one feed, and then we can upload it onto our own so people can subscribe to us that way.
Okay, I'm impressed. You're doing good. Thanks for putting my.
Majesty.
Okay, I never knew that existed. Thank you for sharing that. Steve, from Liz Community, is going to share with us.
This will be tricky. I have to try to imagine where the camera is pointed. It should be right here.
Do you want me to check?
Unless I'm reading now, I'm sure it's
You got
it. You'll look at the back table, you'll see there's this pile of these little flyers and some brochures and some of my business cards and all that kind of thing. So like, if you read that, you'll know everything I'm going to say pretty much.
Say, Steve, you're not on camera right now. Can I move this?
I'm not?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are, okay.
Okay.
It's delayed.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's delayed.
Okay.
Yes, takes a long time. So this is kind of the Reader's Digest version of what I have been doing. I started with Community in April of 2016. I had to go and look because I couldn't remember. It also incorporates some content from my former political blog that I started in 2006 when I was just doing political writing. Interestingly, some of those ancient articles are the ones that perform the best still. And you would not believe which ones they are, but I won't go into that because it's too strange for words. My original vision of Wiz Community was a statewide discussion platform. It was real ambitious, and as I got older and as I slowly realized it was not working, and that it has kind of devolved into a news platform. So it's part of the reason that the site has a lot of features that never get used. It has a lot of extra baggage in the code, which makes it really slow in a lot of ways, and I'm at the moment in the business of redesigning it and rebranding it, but it's painful, which I won't go into, but trust me, it's painful. It is set up to have multiple contributors and an editing workflow and all that kind of stuff, but since primarily it's me, those features get very little use, although it's getting better. I actually have some other people writing things again. So I am a member of Lion Publishers and the Online News Association, so there is some professional help there, and that's been really helpful to me in a number of ways. It's mostly a one-person operation. I had the next word stuck in. So a lot of things fall through the cracks right at the moment. In the last few years, it's like all I can do to do some things about government meetings, and particularly the school board, which was, as you all know, full of excitement for the last 3 years, and it has now calmed down to a dull roar. So that's nice for me. I no longer sit in fear in the back of the room. There was one meeting I remember where I was kind of slowly moving over toward the police as the meeting went on, because I felt better there. So things have been interesting. West Community is a for-profit operation. It's owned by my company, Christine Consulting LLC. I won't go into why that's a name. I used to joke that you shouldn't buy domain names when you're drinking, but that's not really the reason. It's named after my farm, but income for it comes from memberships and donations, and about that much from advertising, because I'm not a very good salesperson, and if I have to go out and sell advertising, it will be ugly. I had a podcast for a few months, and I gave up on it because I decided I wanted to sleep, and I'm trying to rebuild a relationship with a very long-term old relationship, so it's interesting. Life's exciting, but too busy for news sometimes. I welcome news tips, stories written by other people, letters to the editor, calendar events. There's a nice calendar. If people would submit events, it would make me really happy. I'm almost to the bottom of the page. I do a lot of live streaming of events and meetings. If possible, I would really like to train someone else how to do that. I can pay for articles that are of particular interest, but you'd have to talk to me first. I'd love to have an advertising salesperson. Things you can do to help are tell people about this community, become a member, send me some money. Starts at $40 a year, such a bargain. And subscribe to my email or Facebook or YouTube channel. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Questions for Steve? Circulation, or how many people are?
I will admit to having a pretty consistent 2,000 unique viewers. After that gets too complicated to talk about.
Are they local people?
Not all. The nature of the web is, and the way some of the stuff gets distributed is that people do Google searches and come there, and so they come from various places. I have, smattering all around the world. But mostly Eau Claire and Menominee and like that. That wasn't the case before. And some of it's interesting because some of it gets distributed through news platforms like Newsbreak, which is always a contentious relationship because it's wonderful in some ways and terrible in others, and depends on whether you want people to read your articles or if they want them to come to your website to read your articles, which is a different thing.
Okay, good.
Anybody else?
Questions?
You're the first one to mention the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
How is that working? Is that new for you, or?
No, it's not new for me. I mean, that's where all the videos actually end up, except this one, because it's a webinar, but it'll end up on YouTube eventually. So no, that's not new. Viewership there's all over the place, depending. Most of those things actually get embedded on my website, so it looks like it's on my website, but it's really on YouTube.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now remember what we're doing now. This is exploring. That's what we're trying to do today, all the different formats and options we have available. So I'm really excited. We've got a real live newspaper editor and owner with us today. So Carlton, why don't you come up and share.
I couldn't spell the word publisher, now I are one, so.
Yeah.
Pat called me up and said, could I say a couple words about how we can put a printed item on the street? Well, we have to have a item that will sell. If you're gonna put something on the street, will somebody buy it? And will advertisers flock to buy space in it? If you can't financially make it fly, don't do it. I've been in the business a long time, since I was a little boy, and I've seen things come, how the Main Street of the community has changed, Menominee's changed, Glenwood City's changed, I'm from Glenwood. And years ago, all those little businesses, mom and pop operations, bought an ad in the newspaper. And we had financial, we could hire people to do it. Now, they're gone, and not much to replace it. So as soon as you lost your advertising revenue, they want your help, because you couldn't afford to have people around. And so things have changed and continue changing. I had a sheet that passed out here. It's up from Idaho, and I hope most of you, in there it says something about daily newspaper circulation is in half, plus 31 million readers in the last 20-some years. And my newspapers are the same way. I haven't lost half the readership, but it's down maybe 30% from what it was in 2000. And how do you try to find something to take its place? You can't. And what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? If it was only me, I'd say I'm really doing wrong, but it's the entire industry that's suffering for readership. I know Dunn County News is down. The paper in Hudson, they combined with Hudson, Richmond, and River Falls for a single newspaper. And I may have to do that with Colfax. Combine in one paper. I don't want to do it, but it just don't have circulation to it. So, what sells, what doesn't sell. How much time have I got? A couple minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay. What doesn't sell on the newspaper? This is this week's edition. The kids in the front are scholars, are top of the class in Boyceville High School. Honored. They deserve to be honored. They did a good job. Nobody's going to buy that paper on the newsstand. I always look at the newsstand sales and see what's doing good. Grandma might buy another one. That's a grandchild. Here's another one. It's the best story we've ever published. It's about Ellen Ainsworth, an Army nurse who was killed in World War II. The only woman from Wisconsin died in hostile actions in World War II. Really a great story. She saved this guy's father when he was in a hospital. Did not sell it. I was very disappointed. What sells? A good car accident. If there can say such a thing as a good car accident. This is 9 years old. The nursing home in Glenwood, under construction. You ever try to take a picture in a snowstorm with a 35 millimeter? This newspaper sold almost 300 extra copies in newsstands this week. The next week when we have a full story about it, nobody. So I can't tell you what would sell. But you got to be able to sell something. You can't financially do it, don't do it. That's all I have to add. Thank you.
You still have a minute and a half left.
Okay, anybody got a question?
How do you contact you?
My publisher at dewhittmedia.com.
How do you aggregate Glenwood and Colfax?
Well, a lot of stories appear in both of them.
Okay.
I know. Leanne does a good job of covering the county board, and we publish on both newspapers. Yes.
I'd just like to pay you a compliment. I work for the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension, and your newspapers are pretty much the only ones that ever publish anything that we offer for content. But I just think that your reporter, especially Leanne, I sent her a thank you note a couple weeks ago because her coverage of meetings, you can't get to all the meetings. But her coverage is like somebody's there taking like serious notes for you.
Good job. Good employee.
Often her notes are way better than my notes.
I'll be in Madison tomorrow for our Wisconsin Newspaper Association's annual meeting.
Yep, that's important stuff, and you know, it's nice to know somebody's taking good notes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
We're here. Yes.
Okay.
Former journalist, would you do it?
I got an opening.
Don't have to be former.
No, former. Would you do it all over again? Would you do it all over again?
My dad was in it, and that's where I got started. He came to Kansas City in 1935. He was making $12.50 an hour, or a day, a week, $12.50 a week at Hortonville. He got to Glen City for $15 a week in 1935. So, and he was in it for all his life, and I got him when I was a little boy. My mother said I must have been 12 years old. She said, "We need somebody to sweep the floor at the office, and you're it."
Some of us dream of $15 a week.
Yeah.
So, Carlton, question. When I travel up north, I see so many of the local small-town communities have joined into one big newspaper. Is that a possibility with yours expanding out of the two cities you're in?
It can be, and I've talked with my son about doing that. but we made no decision. I don't want to do it, but I might have to.
And you don't want to do it for what reason?
Well, I want to, then, this is the community. You know, I can see what would happen if I put a paper out and didn't have Colfax, and people in Colfax said, well, it's all Glenwood News, and people in Glenwood tell me, well, it's all Colfax News, so I want to keep two separate, so.
Okay. At least you got everything in place, though.
Yeah, and I'm glad you don't have a big mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Other questions for Calvin?
What will happen when you retire?
my son's going to take, I hope. In fact, I should be retired by now. But I don't have very many hobbies, so I'm still in age.
Thank you, Calvin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that all the ways to get a hold of these folks is on that legal sheet in the back. So grab one of those and all the information is on there. So.
So that, Kate is next, and I had a blank spot behind her when I said.
That works.
what the topic was. So she said something about its collaboration, so I didn't know how to spell collaboration, so I said working together.
The hardest thing to do is write words in
Yes.
front of people, and as a professor, I know that I'll be like,
Or big.
not know how to spell this anymore.
Awkward spelling problems.
I'm Kate Edenborg, and I'm working together. I don't have a platform where I'm distributing content. I'm more on the content creation side than anything. And I have a couple of different, like maybe 3 buckets, I think we talked about buckets at previous meetings, of ways that I'm trying to help contribute to fill this need that we have in the community. So I teach journalism at Stout. And so one of the main things I've been trying to do in the past couple of years is find ways to pay my students, my journalism students, to write, to fill this void that we have. Previous years I had them kind of writing for different nonprofits and small publications. I didn't have them ever working with you, but I had them working with the Durand paper, where they were writing, kind of doing internships at these smaller outlets and publications, but these smaller outlets and publications could not pay them. But I also wanted to compensate my students for the work that they were doing, and so I found some grant funding to pay them to work for other people, and me working kind of in a little editorial role. So for the past 3 or 4 years, they've been doing things like that. The past year and a half, I've had them working to develop content that I then share. Steve just signed up and has the link to the website now. Kathy Weber gives me a list of ideas of things that she wants reported on. And I have a group of 3 students right now that are creating content, sometimes their own story ideas, sometimes ideas that are generated by others, in addition to a couple other outlets as well. So this is like a very loose way of, this is why it's working together in collaboration, because that's one aspect of what I've been doing. I used to advise the campus newspaper, the Stoutonia, the Stout campus newspaper. I've been working with them and trying to figure out ways that the content that we create on the campus, and it has been kind of nothing for the past 9 months. I no longer advise it, so I can't control it as much, but to have that content, much of which is community content, and be able to share it. I've also been working with the high school, with a teacher at the high school to help them establish a high school newspaper, which is online. Again, the idea that all this content that's being created maybe can be shared more widely. And Kathy has been part of that conversation as well. Given all of that, one of the things, as I think it was mentioned by Kathy and others, is that people want to contribute but aren't sure how to do it in a way that's more in a journalistic format. And so one other thing that I've been doing is to develop a plan to offer training to citizens to be citizen journalists, so that you have some sort of a template or a model or a way to approach writing journalistic content. And that came up at the last meeting too, is you want to have a particular framework that you're working in when you're distributing content, if you're going to call it news or journalism. And so over the summer I'm developing a training
approach. And one of the things, if you've signed up at any of the meetings, these past meetings, or are interested at all, I'll have a survey to kind of assess when is the best time, what's the best method of this offering this training, because that's the hard part. Everybody's like, yeah, I'll do this, and then trying to find, is it a weekend, is it every night for a week, what is that? And so I'll be surveying this group to just get a sense of if you're interested, and then how would that best work to do that kind of citizen journalism type of training. So that's kind of all of the things, the way I'm really passionate about this, and that's why I'm glad that this group is coming together, because I haven't been able to figure out a way to move it forward on my own, and to try to create something more solid. So I am a content contributor to all of these, well, not all of them, but to kind of, places that need the writers, the content. Because we've heard that idea of time and money are the limitations, right? And so trying to figure out the best ways to get the content for all of the people that are already creating platforms for those.
Questions?
How do you contact you?
Well, am I on that? I don't think I'm on that list.
I don't think you are.
So I'm at Stout. I'm the only Edenborg at Stout. So it's edenborgk@uwstout.edu. But if you type my name and my last name in Stout, I should be the only one. I used to be a Roberts, so that was really, there's a lot of Kate and Catherine Robertses, but there's only, so far I think there's only one, Katie.
Questions?
Is there a Stoutonia now?
Yes. There is. I was advisor till this last year, and then I got too expensive for the advisor role. I'm still helping them try to manage getting content out. Mostly it's been online, and they're trying to get one publication out a semester. But we lost our editor and she this last year, and so that kind of threw things into a whirlwind of not being able to get content out. But I will not let that fail. Even though it's not on my watch anymore, it's not. But I can share, once that's up and about too, I don't know if their website is active, I can share that as part of the resources on the list.
We've talked about, is the paper, the actual paper, is that dead? I mean, Carlton's paper is definitely alive, but in the future, is the regular paper going to be?
Well, and I have a thing on my wall that says, it's the news, not the paper, just to remind myself of that. And one other thing that was added to this is I virtually went to a local News Desert conference. And that was kind of the debate were things digital? Do you have to have a print publication? And all of the groups went all over the place. But the most successful ones were ones that had money and sponsorship and a staff, or they had a really specific audience, meaning they knew they were serving one audience and knew how to reach that audience. So newspapers are trying to reach a general readership, and it's harder to figure out how to get to all those people, like we discussed at the last meeting. Like, should it be phone? Should it be, is it, what should it be a website? Should it be a print thing? Should it be a newsletter? But I'm more concerned about just getting the content out there and shared. But I love print publications. So, yeah.
Thank you for your passion. Thank you for giving it. Excellent.
I'm glad I've got a group to say that to, other than my students who are just like, and some of them, I shouldn't do that because I invited them to be online. So hi, if
Busted.
the students that would be watching wouldn't be like, oh, they'd be like trying to, and I'm hoping that they can kind of give their voice to what that should be, the method.
There's a similar thing that being a journalism person, the magazine industry went through too. Remember when we used to have Look and Life? Do we have Reader's Digest anymore?
Yes.
We still do have that?
Yes.
So that industry exploded too, and they survived by carving little slices of different types of
Publication, yeah.
Do you want about dogs? Do you want something about gardening? Do you want something about guns? Do you want about travel, home? That all slivered, and that survived. That made that industry survive. And those general publications, just,
And increase their price.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they drifted away.
Yep.
Yeah. And the newspapers are still struggling with that in terms of finding that niche, however you want to go.
And I think that's the people are used to getting information and news for free. And so trying to back that up and be like, no, you need to have people that are gathering it and be able to support them. And so it's kind of hard to go backwards when we're used to just being able to click on things and get information.
Sometimes you get.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, representing Dunn County, Kelly, we heard a bit from you last time, now we got to hear more.
Okay, so I'm Kelly McCullough. I'm primarily here for my role as county board chair, but it's worth noting that I wear a couple of other hats. That seat there is where I sit for city council for one more meeting. And then, hey.
But you gotta say who ran against you for your seat.
Oh yes, my wife is going to be sitting in that seat the meeting after, very likely, since she's running unopposed. So that's one hat that I'm about to get off. The other hat that's relevant to this is what I do for a living is I write novels, science fiction and fantasy for large New York press. So communications is actually what I do for a living. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about today is Dunn County and how Dunn County is trying to get news out to folks. So it's a little bit orthogonal to some of the rest of the discussion. So I'm not talking about what we're doing for news. I'm talking about how we're trying to get into the news. And so one of the things that the Dunn County Board Chair does is I share out the credit and I accept much of the blame. So I'm going to start with some of that. A lot of what's going on with Dunn County Comms right now is the responsibility first of County Manager Chris Corpola, who has really taken the bit in the teeth and is running with getting things up and running. Jim Zahns, our Chair of Community Resources and Tourism, is also doing a huge bite of that. Those are the two people that are sort of at the top of my list on getting county stuff out. We created a strategic plan a few years back saying, hey, we need to actually get what's going on in the county out to people, and nobody did a whole lot of it until quite recently. So thank you, Jim, thank you, Chris. Some other people that are very important in that, Louisa Gerasimo is doing stuff with Extension that relates to the county. Caitlin Engel is doing stuff with HHS. Andrew Mersel, our county clerk, is doing a lot of the interfaces. I'm going to forget people. I have a list. Chris DeVitt in IT is doing a great deal of stuff on how county government works videos. So that's sort of the beginning. Let me then give you the executive summary, largely written by Chris, I will note, since, again, share the credit. So her bullet list, we hired a person to write press releases and other communiques for the county, 10 hours a month. That's Doug Mell, Mell Communications, used to work for Stout. She's now creating a monthly county video. This is what we're going to be doing at the county board this month. Highlights, series of videos for social media. This is Chris McBennett is doing a lot of this already about county government. Colfax Messenger is reporting regularly and comprehensively on county activities, which we very much appreciate. Eric Atkinson, our police chief and soon to be city administrator, acquired a large federal grant. Part of that he got was opportunity to buy Qualtrics, which is a really good survey and communications platform. So he got the county included on that. So we've got 3 years of Qualtrics surveys. We're going to see if we can use those to do some more talking back and forth with the community. Department heads in general are getting things out. CJCC is doing just did a 5-minute video about the constitutional referendums. Thank you.
That was really good, by the way. I just watched it this afternoon.
It's open on my laptop, but I was doing this instead. So Doug Mell, Chris Min, Andrew Mersel collaborated on a press release and a video on the county's use of Badger books, which we're very excited about. We are also trying to increase internal communications, making sure that we are all talking to each other so that when we talk to you, there's a coherent message. CR&T with Jim Zahns created visitduncounty.com, which is a very useful site, and I will actually get him to stand up and talk about that in just a second. Caitlin, like I said, is doing a bunch of stuff with HHS, and I'll get her to do a quick preface of that. I think that's the overview. I'm not generally very long. Or apparently I am. Talk fast.
We've got infrastructure in place to make this happen.
We're getting there.
Yeah. where some of the other ones we heard don't have the infrastructure in place.
Well, if you'd asked me the same question 3 years ago, we would not have had much of that infrastructure.
Okay, but that's definitely a step in the right direction. Other questions for Kelly?
I would just say it's not the infrastructure alone, you gotta have some vision driving this. And I feel like there's been a sea change in our county since I've been with Extension for just over 5 years, and I really feel like breath of fresh air, a lot more on like, let's be transparent, let's figure out how to tell people what we're doing. Let's tell a unified story so people get what we're doing. I'm appalled by how often people say they hate government, and I'm like, everything that you are doing right now is provided by people who are going to work every day as county employees. I don't know, so telling the story of what is government? Government is all around us, you know? It's us, right?
And we pay for it.
But you have to explain it to people somehow.
Yes, we
And,
do.
and Chris Corporal explaining what her job is, I mean, that's, what the heck does that lady do? Well, it turns out kind of a lot of things, so.
Caitlin, Jerry, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I can just add that, part of the reason why we like brought in Doug Mell is that for county government, typically the communication is sending out minutes and agendas, and it's dry as toast, and nobody reads it unless they're, you know, and so we weren't really getting the, kind of the good work that the county does, and even sometimes the bad work or the things that are difficult or challenging, and communicating in a way that people could easily digest. And that was kind of our reason for bringing in Doug, to help kind of craft that message in a way that people can pay attention and can learn about it, and then maybe seek to attend the meeting or what have you. And it's been really, I mean, it's been fairly successful so far, just that, I mean, I can't remember the last time that a television station locally aired anything about county government in Dunn County. And we've had at least one story aired by both Eau Claire stations based on some of the press that Doug generated for us.
So I manage Health Done Right. We all should have gotten a postcard from me at some point. I don't really share current news, but I share a lot of resources and elevate other organizations within our community. So it's a really good spot to find something if you need it, or you're not really sure what you need yet.
Well, and I'll add very briefly, I'm sure I've forgotten a couple people who should be getting thanks here. And again, I'll take the blame for that, and credit goes to them.
Thank you, Kelly. Oh, one question.
Yeah, I'll just say, I do like them videos from Christine. I think that has really stepped in the right direction. And just in what's gonna be happening, you know, the meetings and stuff. And I think she's trying to get people to actually come and be engaged, you know, in the county. And I really appreciate that she's doing that.
Yeah, those are great.
Where do you see the videos?
Yeah. You have to be right on the Dunn County webpage.
Yeah,
Right
I
on
do too.
there. And I'm one of them that actually reads the agendas and the minutes.
Yeah, there's a county YouTube channel.
And a Facebook, we have a county
How do you
Facebook.
know there's something on there that you want to see? In other words, why should I go see Chris talk? I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know when she, you know.
I think you stumped him.
That's part of what we're trying to do, is establish the infrastructure so that people know that those things are happening and know that there are things that if they want to be engaged in the county community, this is one of the places to go to look for.
See, I want to know, I want to get an email. Chris just said something about this. Come here and see it.
Perhaps we can start.
I think I will mention that to the head of our communications committee.
I mean, that's what I get from the New York Times, or I get from Steve's, and he says, Wisc
And we have
Community.
to talk, but it would be nice if some of that migrated into Wisc Community
Yeah.
too,
Okay.
as news articles. I would
And I'm
love
sure
that.
Kathy Weber would probably say the same thing, if it lands. in
Yeah,
the-
absolutely. That's what we both
You
want.
got, you got a list of people that may want to get some of your content.
There we go.
Lorraine has a question for you.
You got some national news, big national news on your referendum, and it was looked at all over the country.
Yeah, and John Calabrese was responsible for some of that. He did a lot of talking to the appropriate people and pushing that out to the county.
Well, they were sniffing it out, so,
Yeah.
you know, so that was really nice that you had those videos.
Which referendum, I'm sorry?
The healthcare.
Right.
County.
I was at
Yeah.
that meeting. Terrific.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a timeout. How about a hand for Kelly? Okay, so now, this is more chaos.
What's on right now? Legal negotiators or-
I would like to have you pick which one of these you think you're interested in following up on, learn more about. And there's some that probably go together. Kathy's gone, but
So I have to be, I'm Kathy right now.
you're Kathy. So Kathy and Kate, if you want to work with them, I've got a matrix that I'm going to ask you to fill out some questions about what's going to happen next to each one of these. What do you call that? What should we call that one, Kate? Just collaboration of?
Am I gonna make you spell collaboration?
We
No,
can
I
help
can't.
with that.
Collab.
Work together.
Working together? Okay, so if you want to work in that group, see Kate. How about who wants to work with Becca? Do you need help on this, Becca, in terms of where you can go in? So if you're interested in a podcast type of environment for news, Becca's the person to see. Steve, with your video, if you want to work on that, let's have a group breakout to Steve. And you want to work with Carlton in terms of a real-life newspaper, in terms of how they can increase circulation and survive in the years ahead. We'll see Carlton. And Dunn County, if you want to elaborate more with Kelly in terms of what Dunn County's doing, that's the group you should now join. Somebody's got to go to every one, though.
We've talked about maybe putting the web-based ones together.
Which one would they be then?
Like Kathy and Steve. Kathy and Steve. They're website-based, and other is print-based. So that we wouldn't have so many, so we wouldn't have 6 groups,
Right.
we'd maybe narrow it down to 4.
Okay, so Kathy and Steve can work together? Would that be okay?
With me, yes.
Kind of
Since I'm
web-based.
2 anyways. Kate.
Podcast?
Steve.
The local media.
This is sort of just my own thoughts, but as I've been listening, it sounds like there are news silos that we have.
Right.
And everyone is doing something a little bit differently, whether it's video, podcasts, whatever.
Right.
And it seems to me that if these groups could collaborate, it could become a very powerful thing. That, you know, Steve might have links to the podcast, and Menominee Minute might have embedded a video, and it just seems to separate everything out. Is maybe missing an opportunity.
It's one of the things we're kind of working on in this group, but I'm hoping there will be some seeding back and forth.
Good. Not that I want to.
So Becky, help me out. We need groups, we need 4 groups, you're saying.
Yeah, and the other one we've talked about is to have sort of a clearinghouse or a hub that could receive information from all those and share, and because there's room for everybody at the table with all of this, but how do you get it out? How do you do, like Pat says?
We get stuck here, Bruce. We know the problems, we know some of the things that are going on to help, and where do you go next?
Yeah.
And that's why you're all here.
Yes, right.
None of us can really quite figure that. Kelly is obviously working hard on getting the county through this maze.
I'm more letting other people work hard and not even figure it out.
But you do, Kelly, you do have money to pay them, which is
Yes.
lovely for you to have that resource.
That's what we need. Now we're trying to organize the chaos again. You can see that right now. Margot?
Okay, so why don't we explore finances to get a news operation going? Why don't we explore the grants, those sorts of things, rather than just we need to create a system. And that's what we're talking about with everybody here. Menominee needs to recreate a news system. Or Dunn County.
Yeah.
Or Dunn County, yes. And, you know, Kelly, you know, you've got the tax money and you're using it well. Thank you. You know, but we all need to do that. So we need to find how to form a 501c3, how to find grants, where the grants are, how to write grant proposals. Kate's going to teach us how to write so that we can, and you know, our group already has been covering the city council again. You know, we've been covering other things. We've been stepping forward. So, where's the, you know, so that's my question. I'm done.
And there are a lot of other things in there, like should it be a 501c3? I don't know the answer to that either.
Yes,
We need
yes.
money to make something happen though.
Well, I mean, I think like today, part of what we want to do is see everybody sees what all is already happening.
Right.
And so I think the idea today is like to see how we can support and give ideas, and whether it's support with time or money as individuals, each of the initiatives. Not everybody needs all the things, right? And then kind of see maybe the second step is how to then, to your point of bringing them together and be sharing you know, whether it's sharing content or resources or, you know, that cross network. But I think today, I mean, to Kathy's point, you know, she has a particular vision. How can we support her vision? How can we support Steve's vision?
Carlton's
Manon?
and Kelly's. I mean, this is, we all need to support the people that are working at this.
Right.
And,
Yes.
That's
and
step
struggling
one.
with this.
Yes.
What you're saying is that we have most of the pieces of something that could come closer together and function come closer together.
Yes.
And we didn't know that.
Yeah, so this was enlightening to see all the stuff going on.
So separating into those 5 categories, that I'm gonna miss what's going on over there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think today was very useful in seeing these things. Now, I have a picture in my head. I'm not a computer person, so you could probably pull it up in 2 seconds. But I have a picture in my head that I could go to a site called Dunn County News. And on that site, I could click and get to the Menominee Minute. I could click and get to some of these different, so other people would know that these sources are there too. And maybe have it juried in some sort of way so we don't get some bizarre actor in there who's, you know, fomenting, you know, things. We don't want that. But if there were some way of jurying that, so I could go out there and I could see legitimate sources of news and a little description. Menominee Minute will give you this. This will give you this. This will give you this. And then I could just click and I could get out there. Then I come back and I click on another one.
Including the schools, the hospitals, the local communities, I mean, you just.
Well, it could be,
pick
see, that's
the-
another way of doing it though. One way is the source. Now,
Right.
another way of setting it up would be, you know, and this would take somebody's time. School sports, if you clicked on that, it might send you to all 3 of those 5 sources because it shows up in 3. So I think the first step would simply be to congregate the sources.
Okay. I totally agree with you, and that was brought up last time, something called a central portal.
Yeah, right.
A system. A
To bring
system.
it together.
Bring it
That
together.
includes obituaries and job openings and garage sales and stuff we used to have. The times churches have services.
Yeah.
That we used to be in the newspaper that you kind of
It's
needed
gone.
for it.
Like Kate.
I have one thing. Steve talked about letters to the editor. If you get a letter to the editor for anything, make sure you contact the writer. Make sure the person that signed it is the person that actually
A
wrote it.
real person.
I've had a couple over the years that
Yes.
somebody else's name was on it. Good thing I checked on it, so I always make a point to check.
Ooh, that sounds dangerous.
Okay, I am the facilitator, and I don't know where I'm going right now.
Are we breaking into groups?
Well, we'll follow you.
Exploring.
Where are we going?
If you're gonna write a grant, you sort of have to know your structure to write the grant. You know, where you're going. You just write a grant saying we need help.
Something good in the future. They want to know what you have now. Yes.
Yeah, so the grant idea and the idea, so when I look at that primary objective and I see the words trustworthy and accurate and I listen to the contribution from the back of the room and I say, well, I'm one of those wackos that's going to be eliminated. People don't want to hear the news that I am providing for the community. And so you set up this whole structure, you put somebody in charge and they say, Joyce's news isn't important. Whereas if you had a more open system and you put me on there and then we could let people make a decision about whether Joyce was crazy or not, and that would allow more people to participate in this whole thing.
I think Joyce, as like what Carlton said, if we know it's somebody who's like a local person who's sharing that, you know what I mean? Like as opposed to somebody who's in, I don't know, on the East Coast or the West Coast or something like that, just trying to throw something out there. So, I mean, if it's local and everybody knows who you are, then, I don't know, I think that's reasonable.
Madison.
Right, yeah.
Madison.
Okay,
And when I said that, Joyce, I absolutely did not mean alternate points of view. What I meant was, if someone submitted an article and claimed something, and it was not fact-checked at all, and it became, everybody think, well, this website's really good, it's got good stuff on it, and then we have something that is way out there, and Caitlin, Kate, you could probably speak to this as a journalist.
Yes.
There are ways that journalists have of saying this is factually based, and we have 2 sources or 3 sources.
But people have been doing that to me for a long time, and the fact checkers use different experts than I do, and somebody's going to have to make that call. And so I appreciate, let's not have people from, other outside the area, but let your local wackos like me say our piece, man. Otherwise, we just get in trouble.
So, yeah, I think one of the systems that we put in place is some type of monitoring. And that's what you're requesting.
You need a
But the voice should be there, but you want to monitor.
I don't want to monitor.
No, but you need
There's a lot
to.
of room there. I mean,
You can have your own blog and then nobody
There are
monitors.
things I would not run as a news article that I would run as an opinion piece, for example, or an op-ed or letter to the editor, and, I would reserve the right to edit it just like anything else that flows through my desk, but I don't at all want to exclude anybody in the community.
Right. Okay. Margot?
Gatekeeper, that's the term, is gatekeeper. You're talking about the gatekeeper, you're talking about the gatekeeper, you're talking about the gatekeeper. Carlton, you were too. And that's a very primary function of editors, and of the news. So yes, we are all, I think, in agreement that we need gatekeepers.
No. She's saying she doesn't want.
Maybe we could rephrase that, instead of calling it a gatekeeper, perhaps, certain individuals will just have a link to that. If you want to go on and see what's happening in Dunn County, it's, Dunn County Health or Dunn County Human Services, or it's Joyce's, and I want to say, hey, what's Joyce got to talk about today? And I can just click on her little thing, but you do need a hub. You do need somebody to grab a hold of everybody's, the school districts, the college, the sports, the obituaries. You got to have that hub in the middle and disseminate it out from there. Then you can make it happen.
So this purpose of this meeting today was, and I think a great press release you put out was call to action. We need to do something, because we could probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these more meetings, and we haven't put structure together in terms of how we want to move forward. So we need some flesh on the bones here in terms of how we're going to be moving forward.
If we're pretty much in agreement that there should be this central focus place you could go to and then be directed to different sources. that doesn't have to be a judgmental focus. That just tells you, well, there are these choices you can go to from here. And the only organization on that list that would be capable of setting up such a central source right now.
Well, I immediately think of visitduncounty.com and my CRT director.
True, but the Visit Dunn County website, when it's finished, it will be more of a focus primarily on reasons why to visit as opposed to
tourism,
to news sources.
Right, I was just thinking that we could potentially have a page on there that was like.
Yeah, there could definitely be like local news sources.
Yeah.
That could then serve as that hub until something, potentially if this group wanted to, you know, register a web domain, website address and then launch a simple hub site, you know.
It is one of those things that we have to be very cautious about, because as government, there are things that we can and cannot do with comms, and there are some really hard, bright lines that we have to be very careful about crossing.
Yeah,
Randy?
A quick remedy to that, Kelly, might be is if Dunn County said, oh, hey, we'll put up a certain amount of money, the city puts up a certain amount of money, maybe they put some banner sponsors on the bottom, but we collectively, as groups or county, city representatives, could form and have an individual or a group of individuals be that entity that all of us funnel our information to, and they take it from there. I think then we would have, I mean, I know the city would put up money, I'm pretty sure anyway. Kelly, you're not going to be there anymore, so we're not support, but I think if we could approach it that way, I think you'd have at least more gain.
This is a breakthrough right now, what you
Yes,
just
it
said.
is. Definitely is.
Yes.
I'd just like to state a concern, and the concern is that when government steps in, there is a possibility that government is going to want to hide what it's doing. So then we have the idea of whistleblowers, okay? And that's why we have had, the United States has had, a free and independent media. And I understand that you've been saying that, Kelly. You've been very careful to talk about that.
We have some hard lines that we should not be
Yes.
crossing as government.
Yes.
And I understand exactly what you said.
Thank you.
However, I know that when Barb was reporting for the Dunn County News and she came to a council meeting or a school board meeting or wherever, she would tell it like it was. Same with Pam. They straight shooters, and we appreciate that very much. It keeps everybody online, on their toes. I'm just saying if there was a central organization or a group or some way that the city isn't involved in what's posted, but we support what is posted. The city, I think Stout, I think the school district, I think the county, I think you'd have buy-in from, and others, like, if a car dealer wants to be involved, hey, we'll put our banner on the bottom, you got $500 worth of advertising or whatever. But I think you have to have that, get it down to a hub and a support system and a structure, and let others come through and financially support it, and then you'd have a place for everybody to disseminate their information to from where it goes out. I think, personally.
Okay. So I like the idea that I need to have a lengthy conversation with Corporation Counsel first.
Just another idea in terms of funding that hasn't been mentioned is the Community Foundation, because they offer grants for a variety of things. You have to have a more gelled idea.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sure.
yeah.
But that's
Another funding source. Yes, good.
And to add to that, the city could put money towards the Community Foundation to support this, so it's all, and then it takes us off a hot seat, because we support the Community Foundation, but they support this avenue.
So you're
You
kind of
take
firewall there.
the politics out of it.
Yes.
Steve?
I think you should pick on Becca, because she's had her hand up there. Then you can go.
You were in the right side.
Believe it or not, I'm kind of shy of getting ill. What I'm hearing is that we should choose one of the websites that already exists and dedicate that as our community hub. We already have West Community that's putting up a lot of the content we're talking about. We already have the Menominee Minute that's putting up a lot of the content that we're talking about. So why not choose one of those as our home base, you might say, or our home website, and put our energy into building that into what we're looking for? Because they already have the viewership of people knowing about them. They already have the brand awareness. I work in marketing in my day job. I should throw that out there. But they already have the awareness from the community that they exist. So rather than starting something brand new, having to launch something brand new, build readership around something that doesn't exist yet, maybe we choose one that does exist and kind of mold it into what it sounds like is a virtual newspaper.
I think that's great.
Well, one of my, well, I'm just gonna speak for Kathy to a certain extent. I mean, she has her own vision for what that will be, whether she wants to be the spot where all this is posted. I'm not necessarily sure
And I think
that
most
would
of
be.
you guys are talking about basically a simple, at least to
One
start off,
page.
a simple hub.
Right.
That is just, here are the news sources available to Dunn County residents and people interested in Dunn County. Click here for this, Menominee Minutes about this, the Nom podcast has this, WIS Community covers this, Colfax Messenger, this is, what you can find. And so it's just a pretty simple hub that doesn't really distribute anything other than a link to all the existing sources and potential new sources that are out there.
And that could potentially be financed by potentially the city and the county?
And if you started out simple, it would be really inexpensive. It would not
I'd
be that
be
big.
perfectly happy to build that over the weekend.
It's really tough. Right. It's not a big, that's not a heavy lift to create a simple hub, at least to start.
Could
Okay,
that receive
that-
money though?
Yeah, because you could.
Could the different pieces of this pay a small fee to whichever organization organizes the hub to get it started?
Do you want me to pass a basket? We could probably get
Yeah.
him enough to work this weekend.
I know actually
Right.
Demuth had to leave, but I know the chamber is very interested
Yeah.
in this topic too. As
But
far as businesses,
The
how
hub
do
would
they?
be, and I'm, not to speak for you, Steve, I know, but part of my business is developing websites, and a simple website like that would be, it would be a weekend thing.
At
that you
most,
could
yeah,
put it
yeah.
together, and it wouldn't be that expensive at all to create. So you wouldn't have to be throwing a bunch of money at least the hub to start.
I mean, I think the only out-of-pocket expense there really is a little bit of time and a domain name registration.
Yep.
Okay, Arnold?
News gathering expenses. We've got Kathy and Barbara and Steve who have been covering the news for free for 6 months, is that right, Becky? Since we started, so for the last 6 months, they've been doing that for free. So we've got to find a source of income to pay people or to train citizen journalists. But don't forget about the money. And this
not
is
forgetting about the
so
money.
important. I'm sorry.
Show me the money. All right.
Yeah, follow the money. Follow the money.
If there were a hub and we advertised it well, and it were well trafficked, that might be part of where that income could come from.
Subscriptions.
Both advertising and, if not subscriptions, some way, because there
Yes.
would be more traffic. I think the second thing we need to concern after the hub would be how would we get the word out that there is such a thing? So the traffic would start coming. Some will be automatic because traffic will shift from these places maybe to it. But,
Oh, they won't. It doesn't work that way, but.
That's just why I said, you gotta have a product that somebody will pay for. And if you don't, you're out of luck.
Yeah. And this had a lot of numbers of people maybe it would entice some of those advertisers to
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to come
I
into
would
it.
think flyers would work great for advertising. I mean, put them in the library. Everybody goes in the library.
A lot of people do.
The banks, the grocery stores. I mean, you can easily,
You can buy an ad in the newspaper, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. We'll do this one and then we'll come back to you.
And this is probably obvious, but I'm a very visual person. It has to look good. It has to, you know, draw people in.
Yeah.
It can't just be, here's a link, here's a link, here's a link.
To put some pizzazz in it.
It's gotta have some
Good.
interest.
For advertising, what if in exchange for people being listed on that site, they agreed to do an ad for that list on their site?
Yeah, that's a possibility too. We can pull a lot of information from you too, in terms of your background, in terms of selling this type of stuff.
Carlton, can I ask Carlton a question?
Yes.
Do you get a lot of digital subscriptions?
I think, no, we have, I think last time, about 45, just online, that's about it.
Okay. Okay, this is probably one of the most worst jobs I've ever done in facilitating.
we got somewhere.
But we had a breakthrough.
Yes, we did.
Take credit.
Well,
Yes.
but let me pose this then. Our next meeting of this group is scheduled for April 27th, 4:30 to 5:30. What if we come into that meeting, if we get a core together that comes back and presents us what that hub's gonna look like? Does that make sense? And it's not gonna be completely finished, but at least it's a straw man in terms of what that hub could possibly do. Along with that hub, who's gonna be monitoring, what's it gonna cost, how many people we're gonna need, staffing, is it sustainable? All those questions have got to be brought forward in terms of what we're gonna do. Does that make sense in terms of where to go? Who wants to help organize the hub?
How about those people listed up there?
Give them extra work.
Give it a key.
Is this the hub designers?
I don't have time to
Exactly.
They're all busy doing their own thing.
I think my corporation counsel would have a heart attack if Well, again, there are things that as, you know, I can absolutely push news out, but in terms of anything that smacks of controlling news or being a gatekeeper of news is really outside the scope of what government should be doing, and I'm fairly confident it's outside the scope of what we're allowed to be doing.
Yep, exactly.
Disseminating news.
Yeah, I can,
Disseminating.
I can,
It's information, I mean, that's the distinction is news and journalism and then information.
Yeah.
So what you're doing right now is getting information out to the community, and that's great, but journalism is a different beast.
yeah.
Okay.
What about the library? I keep thinking that as a resource or an entity that's perceived to be neutral, or to have the recipient and the dissemination of information, is that a possible place that could house this?
You're talking about the Menominee Public Library
Yes.
website? So we are already kind of pushed to our limit of time available.
No, I just mean as a focal point, that, not assuming that someone has to take on that burden, but that one of the things that bothers me is that we still, when Pat kind of says, well, I want someone to send me an email, and Carlton says, well, I don't know which picture's gonna sell, you know, how many bodies can we put on the front of the newspaper, whatever. You know, we still haven't talked about, well, how are people gonna find this? And are they really interested? You know, is apathy part of the problem here again, rather than, and I understand the legal implications, but the city and the county, I think the city puts money in the library, don't they? Yeah, right, I think of it as a county thing, but I mean, you're already supporting that as a repository of information. And is the library a potential source? Not that we're saying they're gonna do it, but it is the location that allows for crazy people to put stuff?
I think it needs to be independent of the library.
Okay.
Because I think people will think of the library as being what the library does.
Well, and the library is technically an entity of the city, so it is also, we have, there's an independent board of governors, several of which are selected by the county, some by the city, but I believe that in terms of its employees and its space, it is an entity of the city. So we'll have some of the same problems about what you can and can't do.
Okay, we need to bring some closure. Who wants to work on designing this? One?
You'll have me.
Well, I'll be
What was the question?
We need a core group that's going to try to put a straw man together in terms of the hub.
I would love to help with that, yeah.
I will.
Okay, are we collecting these names?
Can you say through your names, please? I'm
Oh,
writing.
there's the reporter back there.
Joyce,
Joyce
Stephanie,
Joyce, Stephanie,
Kate,
Kate,
Ellen,
Ellen,
Margot.
Margot,
If you don't fire me.
Lynn.
Sorry.
Lynn, front
Lynn,
row Lynn.
Steve. I was
Steve,
gonna say, we need Steve as
Yeah.
the tech guy,
yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
because I'm not volunteering myself.
And neither am I.
I'm just gonna plead county.
Okay, when is this gonna be?
Steve knows how to contact me.
Becca.
The design side of things, you let me know.
Becca's got a question.
Did I hear a volunteer of time?
She did.
Okay,
I'm happy to be a design consultant.
I would love that.
Um,
Thank you.
My question is, prior to the original meeting, have we done any sort of poll out into the general county about what people are missing, how they get their news, when they read their news, anything like that? Because why I ask is this is a group of people who are really interested in it. However, we might be the only people who are really interested in it.
I know,
A lot
I'm
of
working,
work.
a student, Cynthia, who was at our first meeting, isn't here. We are in the process of getting IRB approval because I am at Stout to, this was a project I was having in motion before this whole group came together. And it is that idea of trying to ask the people that aren't here, and Margot and I were just talking about this, is we are all of the same mindset. We all know we want the information, but the people that don't know they need or want the information yet, trying to figure that out is a bigger question,
Yeah,
a
it
bigger.
might be worth,
But
building
we're-
a community survey of some sort.
Yep, and that's what my student and I are working on. It just will have to go through official
Yes.
And
Stout
we'll need
processes.
probably to send flyers and postcards because not everybody has email or looks at email. So
I mean,
we're gonna have to do both.
I need this group to figure out how to get to
Yeah.
other pockets.
Caitlin, I think, left, but we did a postcard driving people to do a
Helton,
survey.
right?
Helton,
Yep,
right,
yeah.
yeah, and that,
Okay, so
ranchers and farmers.
let me summarize.
don't
For the reading.
How many names we got for this group?
Well, I didn't.
Barb.
okay, I've got Kate, I've got Stephanie, Joyce, Ellen, Margot, Lynn, Steve, and Becca as design consultant. Is there anyone else?
Are we missing anyone? that
Susan?
I can.
Okay.
Susan? Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
Susan,
so-
what's your last name?
This group then will hopefully come together, start figuring out all the details that need to be done, and come back and make a presentation to this group on April 27th. Does that make sense, Mike?
And which member of that group is going to take the lead to make sure they communicate with the rest of them to get going?
Who's going to be the champion to call it together? Every group needs a champion. Now, you all volunteered, one person's got to, I see Steve hand
If
up.
there isn't an objection, I will do that,
Okay.
but I'd rather somebody else did, frankly, but I'll do it.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, so Steve's going to spearhead this. On April 27th, let's come together again and see what has transpired in terms of putting this hub together. This is one of the
that
first.
at the library?
We haven't figured it out yet.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
It says
library.
It's at the
Yeah, it says library.
Oh, that's at the library. I thought we were talking about
I'm
Steve's
talking about
thing.
April 27th.
That's at the library.
Library.
Steve, you can meet wherever you wish.
Oh, I thought we were thinking that meeting would, never mind, okay.
This is for that meeting.
I'll make
Another
up a
meeting.
meeting.
This is the meeting that the hub people are
present.
presenting on. And
This
it's
is our
only
general
one,
meeting.
and it's only 1 hour. It is not 90 minutes.
That's what was set up.
Well, the library closes at what time?
The library closes at 6, but if it goes over, I'm gonna be there with the key, so. Okay.
Just as a matter of information, I don't think I can do a meeting on April 27th, but
Somebody else could present.
Let us know.
Okay, this will be the unveiling on April 27th in terms of what we found out, in terms of how it's going to put together. And that meeting, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a step in the right direction. This is a long journey for us to make this happen.
Can I, a couple things? Kind of an unrelated thing, but if anybody's interested in seeing how a newspaper was printed back in the 1930s, there's a museum at the Minnesota State Fair called Maynard News that has operating, prints a newspaper every day at the State Fair. And there's also a display explaining how the press became the fourth estate.
This is which state fair?
Goes back
to Minnesota.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Okay.
One that's closer to us.
Okay, I'm done. Anyone else want to say anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, all of you. Don't work too hard, but keep working.
It's like 30 minutes. We are.
Do you have all the contact?
Why?
So, we got a couple students who are looking for a part-time job.
yes.
Well,
And they'll get paid.
I don't, but I know where it is.
most of my students I'm working with right now are graduating. But when I can post opportunities directly to students, and when I teach in the fall, I teach like a beginning journalism class, and my students are usually looking for opportunities. So
Is that gonna be the heading?
I need somebody in heavy in sports and somebody running public meetings.
yeah, well, public meetings are, I have to do that in classes right now, and oh my god,
Just an information piece. I still do it the old-fashioned way.
it's, I teach them like how tedious meetings can be, trying to find the news in a meeting. But I'll definitely, do you have a card or do you have you're on the list, you're on the Make Recycle list, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And if you want to reach out to me too, you can.
I might call you later.
Totally fine.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.